Hey guys, today we're gonna be doing so we're gonna be watching Bricky. You guys will correct me in the comments probably, but we're gonna be doing his video on each faction. So we're kickstarting the notes even faster. So here we go. Oh, almost forgot. Gotta take out my. Oops. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. But yeah, take out your, people who are still new to Warhammer like me, take out your journals and pencils to write some notes.
As someone who doesn't necessarily serve the Omnissiah, but someone who can appreciate them, you will not be getting my legs today, as I will be replacing them with various things depending on which faction we are currently talking about to add a little bit more context and possible comedy to whatever the hell I am currently doing. So, hello everybody, my name is Bricky, and this is going to be a long video and a large project that has been going on for quite some time. I need two hands for this. This is every single Warhammer 40k race in kind of a nutshell, explained, a little bit of explanation, a little bit of lore, a little bit of talking about the tabletop, mostly lore, what they're all about, and also a little bit of background for those of you who just have no clue what Warhammer 40,000 is. Now you see, Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 is a universe people hear plenty of, but don't know a whole lot about. They see, oh, there's these dudes in big power armor with chainsaw swords, and they got these big old green orcs, and there's some bugs over there, and everyone calls these guys weebs, and then there's these spiky bitches over here, and I don't get it. I don't understand. Where do I start? Well, this video is particularly for you, or for those of you who have a little bit of knowledge, but you're kind of curious about each of the different races and factions in Warhammer. So, overall, the Warhammer universe is vast when it comes to lore and background, and each different faction is so different with the things that they believe in, and some are human, some are transhuman, like where they all have all these crazy ass electronics on them. You've got aliens and you've got the chaos factions, and there's so much to entail that I decided to embark on this project to tell you what each and every single one of them is about, and what the Warhammer universe is about as well, to give at least a little bit of an intro to this extremely bloated but very, very enjoyable world that I and many others partake in. So, I will be explaining every single faction in the Warhammer 40k universe, at least all the factions you can play as, and some smaller factions here and there. I will not be discussing absolutely everything in it because that is a little bit much, and I'm not going to go too mega deep into the lore. I'm going to give you a pretty solid overview of each of the different factions and have you learn a little bit about them, and we'll discuss a little bit of the tabletop as well in case you are curious about that. But for this episode entirely, we are discussing the Imperium of Man, because that takes up a fat chunk of Warhammer lore. Oh, boo-hoo! What is Warhammer 40,000? Well, the 40,000 starts off is the year 40,000, the 41st millennium. That's where it takes place, is in the year 40,000, 41,000 AD. You're already more knowledgeable. Let me read you a quote, first of many quotes in this video. It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 years, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day so that he may never truly die. To be a man in such times is to be amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim, dark future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of thirsting gods.
Alright, so I actually heard this quote before. I don't know where I've heard this quote before. Either, I'm not sure where I heard this, but I think this is one of the most popular quotes out there since it's like the introduction to Warhammer. But let's continue on. Sorry about that abrupt cut. My system crashed, and so we're gonna be continuing on.
Everything blows. And it blows fucking hard. Warhammer is probably the most dark and depressing universes ever in fiction. Or at least like top 3. Everything is so absurdly horrible, destructive, or overpowered that it all kind of ends up canceling itself out. It's like Dota. War rages across the galaxy. Interstellar travel is only possible due to sacrificing 1,000 souls a day to a rotting...
Alright, I gotta write that down. So, warp travel, if I'm right, if I remember it right, is only possible by pretty much 1,000 soul sacrifices. Close enough.
Carcass of a man who you believe to be your god. Demonic gods and just demons tear open the fabric of reality on a whim. Other Xenos or even other humans end up killing each other in untold billions across the galaxy. It is a time of unending war, slaughter, and a bloodbath amongst everybody. Planets are deemed unrecoverable and are completely destroyed on a whim. Everything sucks, but that's like the charm of it. See, everything in Warhammer is evil, but being evil is kind of fun. Like, humanity in its own right is a xenophobic, prejudice, and religious zealot group that kill each other just as much as they kill all of their enemies. And they're like mid to high tier evil on the evil scale of Warhammer. Nobody is good. No matter who you are, everyone is some flavor, some color of evil. Whoever you pick, you are going to be the bad guy. But that's the fun of it, because being the bad guy is badass. Villains are cool. They look cool, they got cool outfits, they got cool weapons, they got cool armies. Villains are cool, man. And when everyone is a villain, everyone is pretty cool. That's what makes this so charming, is that everyone can be the bad guy. So let's start off talking about the main bad guy, quote unquote, the Imperium of Man.
His hair, whack. His gear. Whack.
Speaking of, because of that ad, did you? I tried playing the Warhammer mobile game. Like, I think when it was first time it was released, and like I had to drop it because it was like pay to win in a way, you know, like you had to pay to play other chapters, and I couldn't. It wasn't for me. Maybe they changed that now, but Yeah, it wasn't for me.
Imperium of Man is the main empire of the human race. All of humanity is under this one flag called the Imperium. And about 10,000 years ago, there was a man. He was the emperor of mankind, a 10-foot tall psychic demigod who led humanity across the stars to colonize tons and tons of worlds, create superhuman soldiers, and really bring humanity into a new age. This man, the Emperor of Mankind, was a psyker. And a psyker is like a magician of sorts. In the world of 40k, there is the warp, the immaterium, kind of like hell, but sort of like a purgatory dimension of hell. And a psyker is someone who can take that power and manifest it through their mind to use it to do stuff, like witchcraft stuff, magician stuff, spells, and lots of other things, but we don't want to get too into that. The Emperor, big boy psyker. Top tier, A+, maybe even S. Now the Emperor created a bunch of sons. Yes, created a bunch of sons known as the Primarchs. He created 18 Primarchs to have them lead all of the different legions of humanity to the different stars and plans to help colonize and bring it out. These Primarchs are basically like little versions of the Emperor. Not all of them are psychers, but a lot of them are very, very powerful, and they lead his special Space Marine legions. Then this big clusterfuck happened called the Horus Heresy, where the Emperor's favorite son, the Primarch, Horus, ended up joining Chaos and leading 9 of the 18, half of his Primarchs directly to Earth to fight down the Emperor himself. Now, if you want to know what Chaos is, remember what I mentioned earlier, the warp, that immaterium, the hellish place? In there relies the 4 Chaos gods. Imagine like Satan and 3 other Satans. The warp being kind of evil, those Chaos gods, that's the reason. And so those Chaos gods manipulated Horus, and then Horus helped manipulate all 8 other Primarchs to lead this giant coup directly on the Emperor on Earth. And they fucked up shit. After this huge civil war, Horus died, but not before brutally wounding the Emperor, and right at the end of his life, they put the Emperor on this large golden throne on Earth, in which he is now alive, just barely, but slowly rotting away, powering something called the Astronomicon, so long as he stays alive, and is fed 1,000 people a day. The Astronomicon is like the North Star. If you want to do interstellar travel in 40k, you need to pass through that demonic warp I mentioned earlier. But how do you know where you're going? Well, the Emperor is there putting a nice little navigator right there. He helps navigate you to know where you're going. If you want to go from Earth to some crazy solar system across the way, you need to go through that warp, and then you need to know where you're going, go through there, and pop your way out. It's like doing nether travel in Minecraft, so you can shorten the distance between going to areas. So long as the Emperor is alive and being fed 1,000 people a day to stay alive, you can do that. The moment he dies, interstellar travel's gone for all of humanity. You're so boned. Now, since the Horus Heresy 10,000 years ago, the Imperium has...
Sorry to interrupt you, Bricky, but I just had a really fucked up thought. Imagine, heaven forbid, our Imperial... Heaven forbid the Emperor dies. But imagine he dies while you're in the middle of travel. Bro, you're just fucked. You're stuck there.
Fallen from grace substantially. All technology has started to dwindle and die. There is now giant fundamental religious extremists that now believe the Emperor of Mankind was a deity, a true living god, which is probably the last thing the Emperor would have wanted to be remembered for. So now you have this thing called the Ecclesiarchy, which is this giant church entirely devoted to spreading the good word of the Emperor. He is now the Holy Emperor God, the God Emperor of mankind, and all of the Imperium has taken up worshiping him to the fullest extent and killing